Happy New Year to you guys, and I say that a little sparingly because the last 2 years have been a little rough. However, I am looking forward to 2022, and I'm hopeful for a better year this year, although it will probably still be full of craziness because the world is crazy. Well, whatever. Sorry that it's been a minute. This video was actually supposed to go live on New Year's Eve. However, I got really behind. Obviously, with the holidays at the end of the year, I became very busy, but not to mention, I was also working on graduating with my master's, which I successfully completed all of my finals and thus then graduated. And then my wife and I both got that one sickness that's been kind of going around. We were down for about 10 days. Thankfully, nothing too bad. We were just having to quarantine mostly, but we're up on our feet, ready to go. However, again, sorry that it's taking me so long to get a new video out. It's just I've been backlogged with some other projects and getting some other things finalized moving forward this year. So I have so many exciting things to share with you. However, you're gonna have to wait to the end of the video to hear some of that exciting information. But needless to say, 2022 is probably going to be my busiest year as a creator, photographer, videographer ever in my life. And again, I will share some more of that with you. And if you like this and you're watching on YouTube, please consider hitting the like and subscribe button at the bottom of this video. It does help, helps with push my content out there. If you're watching this from my email newsletter, thanks again for signing up for the newsletter. I really hope to share more content like this with you this year to really provide you guys the most information I can about my photos and really tell you the stories in a way sometimes I can't as a writer because frankly, I'm just not a writer. I'm also not very comfortable in front of a camera, but persistence is key. So without further ado, I'm gonna go ahead and jump into the video here today, which is gonna be my top 10 images, in my opinion, from this last year. Now, there's a few things I wanna talk about here. I'm not just going off of my top 10 best images. Some of these images are actually kind of ranked out of order in terms of my favorite compositions, favorite execution, favorite conditions, all of that. However, I'm also considering the story behind the images, the journey it took me to get there, along with some other things too. So I'll kind of talk about why each image really ended up in the ranking that it did. And if you don't agree, let me know down in the comments down below. I'm also gonna include some bonuses at the end. So again, without further ado, let's jump into the first image, my favorite image from 2021. Now I know what you're gonna say. I did a in the field shoot where I admitted that I took my favorite photo of all time. And this is not that photo, right? Now, again, yes, that photo is still probably top of my list of favorite images of all time. However, this image here is, again, one of those ones where it was all about the journey. It was all about the experience, and then the conditions were amazing. This last year, for those of you who do not know, I took my final 2 semesters of my master's program. And in the in the spring of 2021, so the beginning of the year, I decided it would be a great idea to take 4 graduate level classes. Needless to say, my life was absolutely gone because not only was I taking 4 graduate classes, I was also working full-time and also running this small business on the side as well. So again, I became a very big stranger to my wife, my dogs, my family, everybody, to myself, really. It was a very busy time for me. So, well, why this is my favorite image though, is because during that time, I was actually able to sneak away this afternoon to my favorite place, Red Rock Canyon, because it's right in my backyard. And I was able to go for a walk. I actually spent a good 2.5, 3 hours out just kind of collecting my thoughts, enjoying the outdoors. And really the conditions, I didn't really know if they're going to be that good that day or not. I just wanted to go out and shoot. I just really wanted to go for a walk. So I hiked back up probably, mile and a half into these red rocks and started to kind of see that the conditions were getting pretty good. So I decided to start finding some foreground elements to maybe find a composition and get to shooting. And I spotted this cactus up in the corner of these rocks, and I was like, man, shoot, that cactus is pretty sweet looking. Sometimes these cactus do this. I was hoping for a budding flower. Well, I climbed up to where this was, and needless to say, there wasn't a budding flower. However, I did think it was still a pretty cool foreground. So I framed it up, and I really do like how this composition turned out. It is simple, and honestly, I do wish it was a little bit more, I guess, fancy, but it really worked out. I had this cactus down in the bottom corner, and then this top red rock. I love how I was able to get to exit the frame perfectly there, and it swoops down and it ended up being a perfect frame for an epic sunset. I got this really cool hot red cloud on the left against this blue hour steel blue look on the right. I do wish there was probably a little bit more going on the left mid portion of the frame, or maybe even this like twiggy bush was gone. I don't know. Again, it's not the best composition, but it's really about the story and the journey. I was able to get away from a busy time, collect my thoughts, and I was actually treated with a really great image. And I've actually seen this thing printed a few times, and it turned out great. I really do enjoy how this looks. So with that being said, let's jump to the next image. Now again, I'm no expert at astrophotography, and especially no expert at photographing the Milky Way. However, I did get a long way this year. I was able to shoot it a lot more. Last year, I didn't really get to shoot it that much. I did some star trails, but here in the Northern Hemisphere, you could only shoot the Milky Way during the summer months. Well, not only, it's just the best time to, because it's in the prime time spot in the sky at the right hours where it's dark and all that. So my wife and I, again, during the summer decided, I was still in school. I took summer courses, but was a little less busy. So we decided to take a little day trip to this place. I'm not going to name the location. It was a couple hours away from our home here in Las Vegas, but I don't want to name the location because it's pretty fragile out there. And frankly, sometimes all the good spots, you don't really need to share them all the time. But so we went out there. This was our first time out there. I actually missed a banger sunset driving to this location because it took us a little bit longer to get there than we really anticipated. Well, we get there in the dark. We start exploring. Well, not really the dark. I guess we got there kind of like right at blue hour. So we got to do some exploring and kind of get an idea of what the landscape looked like. I kind of framed up a few shots. I used an app called Photo Pills to plan where that Milky Way would be. And I always kind of knew I was going to do some light painting. So what I ended up doing, this is actually 3 different images. So the first image I exposed for the sky there to get that awesome Milky Way shot. And then I took my headlamp that I was wearing so I could see, and I light painted this cool like fin looking object here on the left side. And then I did another exposure with a different white balance, a warmer white balance, for that cave element to get that cool, warm glow. So I do really like how this image turned out. Again, this is kind of an experience. This was a learning opportunity for me because, again, I admit that I'm no expert at this yet. I'm not the best. Even this image, I've blown highlights and really not the cleanest of compositions, but it was about the plan, the journey. I got to go on an adventure with my wife, which was a lot of fun. And I was able to stretch myself as a photographer and a post-processor. So again, I love how this image turned out. I actually have this image printed in my house, hanging right over there. And I love how it turned out. It looks really awesome. So let's go to the next image. There it is. My favorite image of all time, as I mentioned in my one video that if you have not watched before, it's one of these sides. I'm going to link it over here. I'm still new to this, so if you want to watch how I captured this image, I actually have it right here. So yeah, go watch that if you haven't. But I call this Embracing Fall at Duck Creek. Now, favorite image of all time so far. I just loved it. It was perfect. These cool, again, I talk about in this the video, but this cool transition of green to red along this creek bed here. And then the reflection in the creek with the rocks, and then the falling leaves in the bottom left of the frame. All this cool grass and the aspen trees in the background, and that tip of red with those epic stormy clouds in the top right of the frame. It's just everything, it just came together in this image. It was awesome. Now this fell to number 3 because the experience wasn't that great getting this image. Things go wrong for me when I'm out shooting, and we're going to talk about that again a little bit more later, especially this year with my fall photography. But I didn't get any good sleep this night because the air mattress I brought, it broke. So I was pretty much didn't really have a bed to sleep on. I drove around the next day kind of looking for some stuff. The morning shoot didn't really go that well. So I was kind of getting a bad attitude, and I kind of spotted this spot literally off the side of the road, like not far from Duck Creek Village, if anybody knows Utah or that area very well. And so I came back later in the day. I was actually kind of planning on coming back at sunset, and I came back later or in the middle of the afternoon actually, because these cool storm clouds were coming through. And if you watch that in the field shoot, you'll see how I actually changed my tripod height a few different times. I tried to shoot it horizontal. I tried to shoot it vertical. I mean, I just shot the crap out of it. Thankfully, because of all the the clouds coming through, I was able to get diffused light, and then I was able to get some cool light, hitting it and lighting up these trees. When the light hits the aspen trees just the right way, it's just awesome. So again, I love how this image turned out. I don't have this one printed in my house yet, but that is going to change very soon. I have seen it printed a few times in a few different ways though, and it looks awesome. I love this image. So this image, again, is an image of perseverance, and honestly, that's probably why it ranks at number 4 for me out of 10, because I've been trying to get a sunrise shot of these awesome sandstone peaks outside of Red Rock Canyon for my entire photographic journey. These mountains are eastward facing. It does get epic sunsets here all the time, which I've shot many of times. And I really just wanted a sunrise shot though. I wanted to get that hot, warm glow on the mountains. Now, however, it's hard because there's actually, you can't tell, I'm gonna point like you can see, but behind me when I'm shooting, there's actually another hill that kind of blocks the sun. So you don't really get that good of light early, depending on the time of year that I've noticed, or if the clouds are not the perfect area, it just doesn't work out. And mostly, how it doesn't work out is either the clouds burn away before they catch color, or you don't get the color and you don't get the hot red rocks at all. So I decided to get up. I was gonna go give a shot at it. I knew the conditions looked pretty good, and needless to say, I was not disappointed. I think this is a 5-shot panorama, 4 or 5 shots. Don't quote me on that. I have to go back and look at my raw file, but I just shot a simple panorama. Just getting that orange glow going, and I got that epic sky. I love how on the left you get those cool swooping clouds, and then as you get to the middle of the frame, you get these cotton candy polka dot orange clouds, and then the top right of the frame, just a nice full cotton candy pink and orange sky. And not to mention, I got a full moon. I was not, I kind of just was like, oh, I'm gonna go for a shoot that morning. I didn't plan at all, and next thing I know, there's a full moon setting perfectly at the right time. So I guess that was a little bit of right place, right time. But I love how this image turned out. Haven't seen this one printed yet, except for some test prints, but looking forward to seeing this one hopefully in somebody's home or office. It's going to be in mine probably someday. But yeah, that's the 4th image out of 10. So let's move on to the next. So this image is totally ranked number 5 because of the story, and that's really it. Not too long ago, or last summer, I planned a trip with my wife to go to Alaska. And my whole vision of wanting to go to Alaska, besides, it was actually a birthday present for me to get away. But besides that, I wanted to get a photo of a grizzly bear catching a salmon jumping out of the water. How epic would that be? So we decided, hey, let's go to Alaska. I was there once when I was little, and I remember loving it. I thought my wife would love it. So we went and spent a week up in Alaska. There's going to be a few other images from Alaska in here. It's kind of my big portfolio creation location this year. Well, needless to say, I went to see grizzly bears and photograph grizzly bears, and I did not get to do so. Except for this image, you might ask. Well, we flew into Lake Clark National Park. Again, this ranked purely off of story. And how we got to Lake Clark National Park was by a little puddle hopper airplane. So we got in this tiny little Cessna that took off for the water. We flew into Lake Clark, which took us about an hour and a half to get there. Landed on a awesome teal blue glacier-fed lake. And then we were there. We hopped on a pontoon boat. There was this place called Redoubt Mountain Lodge that we were that we used as home base there. They took us out on a pontoon boat for 8 hours. We drove around this giant lake there in Lake Clark National Park, down the river, and just really took in beautiful scenery. We saw bald eagles. We saw some moose. We saw a bunch of stuff, but no bears, no grizzly bears. And the reason is the salmon run was late, so the grizzly bears were staying down in the fields where they were, feeding to get their hibernation off of, or their system working after hibernation. I'm no biologist, so pardon my descriptions, but so we were a little bummed out we didn't get to see him. Well, we get in our airplane to leave, and our pilot, we start talking to him, and he said, "How many bears did you guys get to see today?" And we all answered, and unfortunately we didn't get to see any. And he goes, "Oh, well, I saw about 30 when I flew in. You guys want to go check them out?" We're like, "Okay, cool." So he flies us out a different way, which was just epic. We're flying through these awesome mountains. I'm going to pop up some images as I'm talking here so you kind of get a feel for the whole experience of this. And we start flying, and my wife actually goes, "Hey, there's some grizzly bears right there." And he goes, the pilot responds to her and says, "Where are they?" And she's like, "Oh, no, right there on the right side." And next thing I know, this guy is like whipping us around and flying us over the top of these bears. We're probably like 100 feet, 200 feet up off the ground. And we're flying around. I'm like, "Oh, that's kind of cool. You can see bears and stuff." And I looked down. I was like, "Oh, hey, there's 2 grizzlies on the left there." And he goes, "Where?" And I said, "Down here on the left." Next thing I know, he like tilts the airplane completely on its side, and I'm looking straight down the window at these 2 massive grizzly bears, and I snap a photo, and this is what I got. It wasn't the best details because I shot it through like a kind of dirty window, but so that's why one of the reasons I made it black and white. And I also just wanted to strip all the color from it because it's just like, it was such the moment, That's what I look at from this. It was the whole experience of literally flying around this little puddle hopper airplane 200 feet above the ground, photographing grizzly bears, taking videos of grizzly bears. And that day we saw about 60 grizzly bears. I'm not kidding. And I learned one thing: when they say don't run from a grizzly bear, I learned why. Because grizzly bears are very, very fast, and they're huge. Again, I'm 200 feet off the ground, and look how big these 2 animals look. Just awesome. Again, I have this one printed in my house because it's one of my favorite memories. Probably will be for a long time. And I will go back to Alaska in the future to get that photo of one catching a salmon because it just makes it that much better. But that one was a little bit of a long story. I'm sorry. I hope you guys enjoyed that one. But let's move on to the next. Flowing creeks are super fun to photograph. And thankfully, the first few days when we were in Anchorage, Alaska, actually, it was raining. When you might say thankfully, why is it thankful that it's raining? Well, shooting forest scenes, actually having some overcast and some rain, it makes it that much better. It brings out all the greens in a way that I hate the color green, but it brings that in a way that I can actually deal with and enjoy. So we were walking. We literally got off the road and we started walking up this trail, and like every 50 feet or so, there was kind of a cool waterfall and water feature, and so we just photographed for an hour, 2 hours, just going up and down. And I think we were pushing on hour 3 before Grace started kind of getting a little hungry and wanting to leave and getting a little angry at me. So, I slapped down the tripod, I flew the drone around, and I snapped this photo. This is actually, I think, 2 different images, maybe 3 different images, kind of vertically stitched together. But I really do enjoy how this one turned out, with all those cool green leaves on the side and this creek just flowing through the scene. And then we got a little bit of light action in the top corner there, which was awesome. But again, just real simple scene, just serene, just hearing that flowing water. I enjoyed it. This one fell because, again, there's no real big special story. The composition's pretty simple. I executed it well, but just a great forest scene. Again, I'm not trying to demean it by any means. This is still one of my favorite images. That's why it's ranked here. And this one does look awesome printed too. Shameless plug, sorry, I make a living selling fine art, so I'm gonna sell fine art. So one of my biggest goals for 2022 was to take advantage of fall. Fall is amazing. Now here in Las Vegas, there's only really one place to go see fall leaves, and it's not the best. There's a couple trees and they drop leaves like that. So I decided to go up to Utah for a few different trips. I was actually going to go to Utah and then northern Arizona. But once I got up there, I kind of realized that I needed to maybe go back a few weeks later to try to get some more peak color. But the first trip I took, I went up to Fish Lake in Fish Lake National Forest, but actually Fish Lake there in Utah to take some pictures of this aspen grove and a few other locations that I knew. And literally the first thing I do driving into Fish Lake is I see these aspens, I pull off and pull out my camera and go take a picture, and all of a sudden these deer pop their heads up. I'm like, awesome! So I start photographing these aspens with this light hitting them and this beautiful scenery of deer down below. It was just awesome. I do wish I could have taken my time a little bit more. I had to rush because I didn't want obviously you could see the doe in the bottom left corner. She had me pegged, so they were getting ready to bust out of there, and they ended up doing that. So I wanted to get the photo, but all in all, it turned out pretty good. I do wish I was able to balance my exposure a little bit better. I kind of clipped some highlights up here in the top left corner, but it works out. And honestly, this image ended up being probably one of my favorite of the trip. And at first when I took it, I was like, oh man, that's a good image, but I didn't really think it would be that great. But then hearing some of the feedback from you guys and hearing how it made you feel and the emotions and your enjoyment of it, I was like, man, this thing is a pretty awesome image. So again, your guys' feedback makes me happy, I guess. It helps me understand my craft and where I can get better and the things that I can share with you guys through these photos. So thanks again for your feedback, those of you who gave me it. And yeah, that's this image here. So we're back in Alaska, again, on a boat this time. We were actually down in the Inside Passage of Alaska. in a place called Sitka, Alaska. We spent 8 hours on a boat photographing whales and wildlife. Oh man, it was a lot of fun. My legs were killing me at the end of it. I was like, from being on the ocean. I'm a desert rat, so being up there on that boat on the water was a learning curve. I didn't get sick, but trying to photograph, like look through a viewfinder of a camera for 8 hours on a boat and like while it's like rocking like this, like you're gonna get a little tired from it. So, but towards the end of the trip, we actually swung around and we found these eagles actually near their nest. And fun fact I learned about eagles, they always go back to their nest every year. They rebuild it and make it bigger, which I think that's just really cool. So I was able to see this bald eagle here, and I was able to capture a really cool image of this light strip just hitting it perfectly. And then I love in the background, you can see like this moss or grandfather's beard or whatever you want to call it. Again, sorry, I'm not a biologist or botanist. I'm a photographer, but that's my biggest explanation for it. But I really do think that the background adds to this image with the separation of this bald eagle on the one limb of tree or the one tree limb right there. The light was great, and it's actually, if you couldn't tell in the close-ups, it was actually raining during it, which was kind of cool. So there's like little specks of rain throughout, which I really loved how that turned out. So again, this was an experience, composition, everything, just a great image. Hopefully gonna have this one printed one day in my place too, so. Tree photo. I call it Journey of the Elder Tree because as we were going through the forests there in Alaska, and just like I bet any other place, like you start thinking like, man, how old are these trees? Like how long have they lived for? What stories can they tell? And that's really what stood out to me with this tree. I mean, it just was covered in moss. It had limbs going everywhere. It's kind of chaos. But then this little haze in the background with the light coming through just really made the tree pop out to me. So I actually decided to grab my camera and snapped a photo. This was actually, again, one of the reasons why this is one of my favorite images, besides it just being a good image. I took the best nap of my entire life right before I took this. And I'm not kidding. Me and Grace got in our rental car. We were waiting to kill some time before we caught our flight to our next location. And we decided to kick back and relax in our rental car. We pulled the windows down a little bit. And it started to rain. It was just like hitting the roof perfectly. And we both knocked out for like 2 hours. Man, it was a good nap. We both still talk about that like being the best nap we've ever taken. We're big nap people. You can't beat a good nap. Come on. So after that, we went and walked around and found this image and took an image. So I got a great image and a good nap. That's a twofer. Just my favorite. Again, for those of you who have watched my In the Field stuff from fall, Chasing Fall, I had 3 episodes on the channel, so go watch those if you haven't. You'll know that I ran into a little bit of an issue. Again, I referenced it earlier that my fall, I just ran into issues all the time out taking the fall photos. But I woke up, actually this trip, I didn't pitch a tent or anything like that. I just slept out of the back of my car, my truck. And I woke up one morning getting ready to take an epic sunrise shot of this cool vista area. And I woke up and my feet were well above my head. And I was like, man, I didn't remember parking on this crooked of a spot. And well, lo and behold, my back right tire went completely flat in the middle of the night. Just fun to wake up to. So I ended up kind of scrambling and got an okay image. I took some drone footage, but I was just ticked off. I was not happy. Obviously, who likes doing that? And so after I took some images, I was like, man, shoot. All right, well, obviously I need to work on safety before images. which is not always the case with me. But again, I think I have an image in here later, but that becomes more apparent. But so I decided to change the tire, which I got big boy tires on. They're a pain to move around. So got my big boy tire put on, and it was okay. I mean, it seemed a little low. I checked it before I left home. I mean, I always check everything before I go on a trip. And I was like, man, I'm feeling a little, I want to get to town. I want to check the air pressure, maybe get a fix a flat, and, you know, before I screw around and do anything else, which canceled my entire day plans. I had a whole day planned out and completely canceled it. So I turned back and I went back the other direction, opposite of where I wanted to go. And I go down the corner and I see like 10 mountain goats just chilling on the road. And I was like, man, wow. So I get out and I start chasing these mountain goats, not chasing them, but going after where they went. And I started taking photos of them. I'm going on these like steep cliff rock faces and watching them run around, and I snap photos. And next thing you know, here's something over my left shoulder, and I look up and there's this mountain goat standing right there. Got the image. It turned out really good. Then I realized I was standing on a steep cliff face and I was wearing flip-flops, which was probably not the best choice. But in the moment, you just gotta go. So again, I'm happy with how this image turned out. This is an experience image. There's nothing really super fancy about it. Mountain goats are beautiful animals. This is a female mountain goat, though, by the way. Male and females have horns. So I did learn that later on. Now, that was my top 10 of 2021. What I'm going to do, though, like I promised, I have a bonus for you guys. I actually have 5 honorable mentions that I'm going to list out here that are really, they're great images. I love them. They're perfect. They just didn't make it in the top 10 for obviously all the reasons you heard me talk about for the last however long this video is. So with that being said, let's jump into honorable mention number 1. So this image is again from Alaska. This is actually that lake and river that we were going around looking for bears. This is the Redoubt Mountain Lodge here, and it's such a beautiful area. It's like a photographer's paradise. And I couldn't really take many other images except from the boat because we were guests to this place. Not like in the sense of we were staying there as guests. We were actually guests to the guests, I guess. So they actually have a few different lodges you can rent for staying the night there. And they wanted to make sure that they took priority and that they felt like they were getting the experience that they deserve for the money that they spent there. And we were just day guests. So they were very like controlling on where we got to go and what we got to do, unfortunately. Also, they were trying to keep us probably from going around and getting eaten by grizzly bears. Because again, this is a remote lodge. We had to take a puddle hopper plane. They go the entire season without cell phone reception and like all that crazy stuff. So, well, as I was getting back onto the pontoon boat to go for afternoon after we ate some lunch, I snapped this image here, and I do like how it turned out. It was handheld, so it's not perfect, but I really enjoy this cool cabin on the side here with, actually, if you look, you can see some moose antlers over there in the corner with these pine trees just surrounding. Again, you get a nice little reflection down in the bottom of the frame and this cool rock face with that moss on there too. And then just these epic Alaska mountains in the background with getting some light and stuff. So I would love to go back and shoot that in better light and, you know, a little bit better execution because I'm not being handheld on a boat. But all in all, it turned out really good. So I'm happy with this image, and definitely still one of my favorites. So. Honorable mention number 2 was taken not far from my home here. Again, I wanted to go kill some time between class and work and everything, and thankfully I was able to get out for like about an hour to go take a photo. And I knew the spot I wanted to go to I knew the sun would be coming down and catching these cactuses because I drove by them earlier, actually, when I was going to take some night photos. I saw them and I was like, man, I gotta come back here. And So me and my wife went out to take a photo. Unfortunately, during this time, there was a bunch of forest fires coming from California, so we had a bunch of smoke coming through. So the sun star isn't as clean as I would hoped because of all that diffusion. But what I loved about this is there's not a cloud in the sky, which really fits well for a desert scene like this. That cool sun star in the middle-ish portion of the frame looks great. And then this cool cactus here. I just loved how it glowed. It just was awesome. And a fun story about this is as we were getting ready to take the photo, 2 helicopters flew about 50 feet up off the ground right over the top of our head. So that was fun and kind of scary, but mostly because it was like, whoa, where'd they come from? But needless to say, again, I enjoyed this image because I actually have it printed over in my house over here. Really like how this one turned out. Honorable mention number 3. Again, I took a video of me capturing this image. If you want to go and watch that, go watch it. But this is about a couple hours south in the Mojave Desert here in Las Vegas, a couple hours south of Las Vegas in the Mojave Desert. English. I have a master's degree, I promise. So I decided to go down. I wanted to take some night images, but I wanted to get down there early to get some cool sunset shots of this awesome sand dune. So I get down there and I kind of get some composition. I took some drone footage and was shooting this huge 300-foot tall sand dune. And I actually was then getting ready for my night image composition and was getting ready to shoot blue hour. And I turned back around and I saw this cool side light hitting this awesome sand dune, and then those 2 little sand dunes on the right there just getting hit right, so they kind of peaked up, and I love that. You get the giant sand dune with these kind of 2 smaller sand dunes. So flipped my camera around, shot that real quick, and I decided to do this one black and white. I thought it looked awesome in black and white, so I was kind of playing with black and white at that point. I might go back and do a color version of this at some point too, but for right now, I like it as black and white. So again, I have this one printed too. It's an honorable mention, and I have it printed in my house. I don't know. So this image is definitely experience, memory driven, and execution driven. For those of you who don't know, I am actually a PGA golf professional. I worked the last 3 years as a grad assistant for the UNLV men's golf team, which was 3 of the best years of my life. Honestly, I really enjoyed being around that program and the guys I got to meet and the friendships and relationships I developed. It was awesome. So the home course of the Rebels, one of the home courses, is Shadow Creek Golf Club here in Las Vegas. If you are a golfer, you probably have heard of that golf course before. It's hosted the Tiger versus Phil match. It's famous. And I was out helping with our qualifier and got to go walk around Shadow Creek with a camera for a few days, which is not a bad deal. And this is the 17th hole there. So while I was waiting for the next group to come up, I snapped a photo of this light hitting that flag right in the middle of the green there. It was awesome. So again, that's kind of a memory, and kind of going to cherish that one for a long time. I think I have some Shadow Creek images printed over here too where I took, but it just reminds me of everything I've done over the past few years, and definitely the journey to get to this point. So that is the honorable mention number 4. Last but not least is this honorable mention. I love this image. Again, in Alaska, epic light, cool vista and everything. I do like how this one prints too. And honestly, I love this image. And it was a great, adventure. Me and my wife, we drove up. We drove probably for 4 or 5, maybe even 6 hours just around exploring. And we found these just epic vista after epic vista. And So it was just a great adventurous day, and so there's a good story behind it, and the composition's good. It's just a nice panoramic vista shot. The light was decent. Obviously it was like at high noon, but the clouds were helping us out. So I mean, there's really a lot of great things about it. It could easily been in the top 10. Any of these could easily been in the top 10, but I just decided to leave it out, and I can't really even tell you why. Can't really put my finger on it, because again, this is still probably one of my more favorite images and just overall photos I've taken. But those other ones just were held a little bit closer to my heart, I guess. So, but yeah, that's my honorable mention. Well, guys, if you enjoyed this, please again consider hitting the like and subscribe button at the bottom. It really does help. I'm going to do more of this probably in the future. Again, I have some, I guess, explaining to do, like I mentioned, and then I realized that as I was talking about one of the other images, it kind of maybe gave it away a little bit. But I'm not stepping away from golf completely. I am still going to be coaching and teaching and working with players, so that's still very much a part of my life. However, my time with UNLV is done. I graduated, which was awesome, and it just was the right move for me to step away and start focusing on this. I am actually going to be doing this full time. Selling fine art photography, doing some videography for myself, for clients, and running a production and art company. So I've actually partnered with my wife. If you can't see this piece over here, that's actually one of her pieces. I think I got some more over here too. I'm gonna start sharing some of her stuff too. She's actually a very talented stained glass artist. I can't ever say that right. So she creates awesome artwork out of stained glass, and so we partnered together. We started a small business selling artwork and doing services. So I got that going, and then I got a couple other things that I'm working on that will be launching here in the very near future. So keep an eye out for that. But again, you hopefully should be hearing more from me here over the next few months, as I no longer have to go to school. And again, I can dedicate a lot of time, energy, and effort to this now. So thank you to, specifically to those who have followed me for the last 2 years now. I think I've been doing this. And without you guys, without your support, and honestly, with like dragging me into this kicking and screaming, I never thought I would ever try to make money doing this, and here I am. So, and honestly, it's because of you guys. So thank you for the support. 2021 was a great year of development, and I'm really looking forward to what 2022 is going to bring. So if you are interested in staying in the loop, subscribe to my newsletter, subscribe to my YouTube channel, go follow my other social media platforms if you haven't. I have a lot of trips planned here in the future, and going to continue to pump out content and photos for you guys. And not to mention, I'm going to run a sale here in the near future for any of these prints. If you like them and you want to print for your space, keep an eye out for that. I'll be launching a sale here very, very soon. Not to mention too, Valentine's Day and a few other holidays are around the corner. So keep an eye out. Hopefully going to pump some new photos out for you guys here in the future as well. And if you have anything that you want shot, or you're like, oh, I want to see more of that, shoot me an email, shoot me a message or a DM. Just let me know. I'm always looking for ideas. So I'm going to stop rambling on. I hate being in front of the camera, which is why I ramble, and most of the time why I script things, but I didn't script this one. This one was very unscripted, and I don't know what to do with my hands. I'm uncomfortable. So I'm just going to stop. I'm going to clean up before my wife gets home, because I just destroyed our whole entire living room to create this film set. So peace out.